Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Wednesday, July 30th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will see a high of 91.3 degrees Fahrenheit and a low of 80 degrees. It's going to be a warm one, so remember to stay hydrated, seek shade, and take it easy if you're out and about. Later in the program, we'll investigate a truly remarkable story. Why an 8.8 magnitude earthquake, despite its immense power, did not lead to widespread devastation, and what lessons can be learned from it. We'll also dive into the contentious debate surrounding environmental policy, exploring why the Trump EPA is seeking to undo a range of established climate regulations. All these stories and more are coming up next on Alex's News. Stick around. Welcome back. We begin this morning with a seismic event that shook the Pacific yesterday, triggering a widespread tsunami alert across numerous nations. It was a true wake-up call for coastal communities around the globe. Joining us to break down the details is our reporter, Ethan. Ethan, tell us what happened.
Grace, it was quite the jolt. Early yesterday morning, July 29th, 2025, a massive magnitude 8.8 earthquake struck off Russia's Pacific coast. This wasn't just any tremor. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, it was one of the strongest ever recorded globally and the most powerful worldwide since Japan's 9.0 magnitude earthquake back in 2011. It immediately prompted global attention and extensive emergency responses.
An 8.8 magnitude earthquake is truly immense. Can you give us a clearer picture of where exactly this quake occurred and what kind of geological activity led to it?
Absolutely, Grace. The initial reports had it at 8.0, but the U.S. Geological Survey quickly updated it to 8.8, while the Japan Meteorological Agency measured it at 8.7. It happened at precisely 23:24:50 UTC yesterday, July 29th, as confirmed by the USGS. This was a shallow megathrust earthquake. Now, for those unfamiliar, a megathrust quake occurs at a subduction zone, which is where one of Earth's tectonic plates slides beneath another. In this case, the Pacific plate is diving beneath the Okhotsk plate, causing what we call reverse faulting.
So this was essentially the Earth shifting dramatically. Where was the epicenter relative to populated areas?
Precisely. The epicenter was located approximately 119 to 126 kilometers, or about 74 to 80 miles, east-southeast of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, a city on Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. It was also quite shallow, around 19.3 to 20.7 kilometers, or 12 to 13 miles deep, according to reporting from ABC News, NPR, KOLD News 13, and TheGuardian.com. Adding to the concern, this main shock was actually preceded by a significant magnitude 7.44 shock on July 20th, 2025, and there have been multiple aftershocks as strong as 6.3 and 6.9 magnitude. Scientists are even expecting aftershocks up to 7.5, as ABC News, NPR, KOLD News 13, and ctvnews.ca have reported.
That's quite the seismic family reunion of quakes. We know this generated a significant tsunami. How far did the warnings and advisories stretch across the Pacific?
The tsunami warnings and advisories were extensive, Grace, truly spanning the Pacific. Initial warnings, as reported by NPR and KOLD News 13, indicated a risk from powerful waves that could last more than a day. Countries and territories under these warnings included Russia, Japan, Hawaii, Alaska, Oregon, Washington, California, British Columbia, the Philippines, Mexico, New Zealand, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, and many more, as comprehensively noted by ABC News, NPR, KOLD News 13, and TheGuardian.com.
A vast reach indeed. What was the direct impact like, particularly in the epicentral region of Russia?
In Russia, specifically the far eastern Kamchatka region and the Kuril Islands, the impact was most significant. Russian emergency services reported tsunami waves hitting the Kamchatka coast, with heights of 3 to 4 meters, about 10 to 13 feet, in some parts of Kamchatka. It was even higher in Severo-Kurilsk in the Kuril Islands, reaching up to 5 meters or 16 feet, as NPR, KOLD News 13, TheGuardian.com, and Yahoo.com detailed. The town of Severo-Kurilsk saw its fishing port flooded, boats washed away, and power supplies cut, leading to a state of emergency. Around 2,700 people were evacuated in the Kuril Islands and about 60 from a surf camp on the Kamchatka coast. While several people were injured from rushing to evacuate, thankfully none were serious, though one indirect death was reported. Russia has since lifted its tsunami warning, but the risk of aftershocks remains.
That sounds like a terrifying ordeal for those directly in the path. What about Japan, where memories of the 2011 tsunami are still very fresh?
For Japan, Grace, it was a massive undertaking. All of northern Japan was placed under a tsunami warning, leading to the evacuation of around 2 million people, according to ABC News. The Japan Meteorological Agency warned of a tsunami about 1 meter or 3 feet high expected to reach Hokkaido. Actual waves were generally lower, with the highest recorded around 60 centimeters, about 2 feet on Hokkaido, though some later reached 1.3 meters. Residents went to evacuation centers, with those memories of 2011 very much front of mind, as NPR and KOLD News 13 reported. Crucially, no abnormalities were reported at Japan's nuclear plants, including Fukushima Daiichi, where workers moved to higher ground as a precaution. Transportation was disrupted, and at least one 60-year-old woman in Hokkaido was injured while evacuating, according to NPR, KOLD News 13, and TheGuardian.com.
Good to hear Japan's nuclear plants are okay, certainly a significant concern. Moving eastward, what kind of impact did Hawaii experience?
Hawaii was initially under a tsunami warning, but that was later reduced to an advisory and then lifted, according to ABC News and KOLD News 13. Governor Josh Green stated that Hawaii had not seen a wave of consequence and no damage was reported, calling it a great relief. However, he had earlier mentioned bracing for a significant wave measuring 6 feet total from peak to trough. Waves of up to 4 feet were recorded off Oahu, with a gauge in Hilo recording 4.9 feet. Some flooding occurred in shoreline areas and a 15-foot drop in water levels was observed at Kahului Harbor, according to Yahoo.com. Officials urged residents to evacuate low-lying areas, and Honolulu Mayor Rick Blangiardi urged calm but decisive action amidst bumper-to-bumper traffic during evacuations, as ABC News, NPR, and KOLD News 13 reported.
So it sounds like Hawaii dodged a significant bullet. What about the U.S. West Coast and Canada?
They also saw advisories, Grace. Coastal areas of Alaska, Oregon, Washington, and California remained under NOAA tsunami advisories, as reported by ABC News and KOLD News 13. A specific stretch of coastline in California was under a tsunami warning. Tsunami waves were recorded in Monterey, California, and San Francisco. Alaska's Aleutian Islands saw waves up to 1.4 feet, while California observed waves up to 1.6 feet, according to Yahoo.com. In Canada, Vancouver Island in British Columbia was forecasted to see waves less than 30 centimeters, or under 1 foot. Much of the U.S. West Coast was under an advisory, urging people to stay away from beaches and harbors due to dangerous currents.
Ethan, it's quite remarkable that despite such a powerful earthquake, there have been no confirmed fatalities, though some injuries. Yet, the U.S. Geological Survey issued a, quote, red alert for economic losses, end quote, suggesting over $1 billion in damages. Can you explain this discrepancy?
It's a critical point, Grace. The USGS red alert is from their PAGER system, which stands for Prompt Assessment of Global Earthquakes for Response. It's a model-based estimation of potential economic damage triggered by the immense magnitude and location of the earthquake. It suggests a high probability of substantial economic impact, particularly in the immediate vicinity of the epicenter, like the Kamchatka Peninsula, which has industries like fishing and mining susceptible to damage. The system provides rapid assessments for emergency responders even before comprehensive ground reports are available, and its loss estimates don't yet factor in secondary effects like tsunamis in its economic models, according to USGS.gov.
So it's an estimated risk based on the quake's power and location, not a confirmed tally of damage, particularly for distant regions. That makes sense.
Exactly. For more distant regions like Hawaii and Japan, the impact was significantly mitigated. While tsunami waves were observed, their heights were smaller than initially feared, with the energy dispersing as they traveled across the ocean. The highest recorded waves in Hawaii were around 6 feet peak to trough, and in Japan, around 2 feet initially, with some later reaching over a meter, as the Hindu.com noted. Both Hawaii and Japan have robust tsunami warning systems and well-practiced evacuation procedures, lessons learned from past devastating events, like the 2011 Tohoku earthquake. These effective early warnings allowed for timely evacuation orders, with nearly 1 million residents evacuated in Japan, significantly reducing the potential for loss of life. Furthermore, Japan's stringent building codes and infrastructure, designed to withstand seismic activity and tsunamis, contributed to minimal damage to key infrastructure, as the Hindu.com highlighted.
That explains why the outcome was so different from the devastating 2011 Tohoku earthquake. Can you elaborate on the geological and geographical distinctions that played a role?
Indeed, Grace. While both were powerful megathrust events, the 2011 Tohoku earthquake's epicenter was only about 72 kilometers east of a densely populated region of Japan. This meant the tsunami reached shore with immense energy in as little as 8 to 10 minutes. In contrast, the Kamchatka earthquake's epicenter was much further off, about 119 to 126 kilometers off Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, a greater distance to relatively sparsely populated coastlines, as ctvnews.ca explained. The fault rupture mechanics also differed. The 2011 quake involved a massive rupture that caused a significant vertical uplift of the seafloor, displacing a colossal amount of water. While the Kamchatka rupture was also substantial, preliminary information suggests its specific characteristics did not generate consistently catastrophic waves along populated coastlines. The undersea topography also played a role. The Japan Trench, where the 2011 quake occurred, is characterized by a steep seafloor that focused and amplified tsunami waves to astonishing heights of over 40 meters, or 133 feet, causing over 18,000 deaths. Though the Kuro-Kamchatka Trench is also complex, the specific orientation of this rupture likely influenced wave propagation, resulting in less devastating outcomes.
Fascinating how these geological nuances can have such a profound impact on human lives. What does this event tell us about current seismic activity patterns and future risks, particularly along the Pacific Ring of Fire?
This earthquake, Grace, which occurred in a highly seismically active part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, offers crucial insights. The rupture is believed to have occurred in a seismic gap between the rupture zones of major earthquakes in 1923 and 1952, suggesting it is part of a long-term cycle of strain accumulation and release. This powerful event indicates that this segment is currently in a period of significant seismic release. Seismologists will be closely studying how this activity may have transferred stress to adjacent segments of the fault, potentially increasing the likelihood of future earthquakes in the region, according to ctvnews.ca. While exact predictions are impossible, this event serves as a critical reminder of the persistent hazard for other major population centers along the Pacific Ring of Fire, including the Cascadia subduction zone off North America and the Nankai Trough off Japan. It reinforces the need for robust international cooperation, effective early warning systems, and comprehensive disaster preparedness plans in all coastal communities around the Pacific.
Ethan, that was an incredibly comprehensive and eye-opening report. It's a stark reminder of the Earth's immense power and the importance of preparedness. Thank you for that deep dive.
My pleasure, Grace.
And that was our first story of the morning. We'll be right back with more after this short break. Welcome back, everyone. We begin this half hour with a bombshell announcement from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency yesterday, a move that could fundamentally reshape our nation's environmental landscape. For more on this pivotal development, we turn to our senior reporter, Chloe. Chloe, what exactly did the EPA announce?
Grace, good morning. In what is being described as the largest deregulatory action in U.S. history, the Trump administration's EPA, under Administrator Lee Zeldin, formally proposed a sweeping rollback of its greenhouse gas regulations on July 29th.
That sounds significant. Can you break down the core elements of this proposal for us?
Absolutely, Grace. According to National Public Radio, the core of this proposal has two major facets. Firstly, it aims to eliminate remaining regulations on greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles. Secondly, and perhaps more fundamentally, it seeks to revoke the 2009 endangerment finding.
The endangerment finding sounds critical. What exactly is that, and why is revoking it such a big deal?
It's a great question, Grace. The 2009 endangerment finding was a scientific determination that carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are air pollutants contributing to climate change and harming human health. This finding historically underpinned the EPA's authority to regulate these gases under the Clean Air Act. Revoking it essentially pulls the rug out from under the EPA's power to regulate these emissions at all.
And what's the administration's justification for this drastic move? Are they saying regulations are fueling more problems than solutions?
Administrator Zeldin, as reported by Wisconsin Public Radio, argued that the EPA twisted the law and warped science. He claims rescinding this finding and 30 other environmental regulations would, quote, end $1 trillion or more in hidden taxes on American businesses and families.
$1 trillion is a huge number. What about the vehicle emission standards you mentioned? What exactly are they reversing there?
On the vehicle front, the proposal seeks to eliminate all federal greenhouse gas emission standards for light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles. This would reverse stricter tailpipe standards that, according to NPR, envisioned half of new U.S. cars being electric or plug-in hybrids by 2030, and Biden-era rules aiming for at least half of all new car and pickup truck sales to be electric by 2032. The transportation sector is currently the largest direct source of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions.
So they're easing off the gas, taking their foot off the brake, so to speak. How are they legally justifying challenging scientific consensus and previous court rulings?
A key legal argument, according to unnamed news sources, centers on the 2024 Supreme Court ruling in Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo. This decision fundamentally overturned the 40-year-old Chevron deference doctrine.
Chloe, for our viewers, can you briefly explain Chevron deference and why overturning it is so impactful here?
Certainly, Grace. Chevron deference meant courts would typically defer to a federal agency's reasonable interpretation of an ambiguous law. The Loper Bright ruling ended that practice, requiring courts to exercise their own independent judgment. It also solidified the, quote, questions doctrine, meaning agencies now need clear and explicit congressional authorization for issues of vast economic and political importance. The EPA argues the Clean Air Act lacks the explicit authorization now required to regulate greenhouse gases.
So this isn't just a regulatory rollback, but potentially a redefinition of agency power. What has the reaction been to this?
Opposition is pouring in from environmental advocates and Democratic political leaders. Wisconsin Public Radio reported that Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers and California Governor Gavin Newsom condemned the actions, stating they, quote, abandon science and the law. Greg Nemeth, a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, called the move a, quote, political change designed to, quote, prop up fossil fuels, emphasizing there is no scientific basis for reversing the finding.
That's quite the strong condemnation. What are environmental groups saying and planning to do?
Environmental groups are already preparing for legal action. The Environmental Defense Fund president, Fred Krupp, called the move shameful, reckless, and immoral, as reported by NPR. While no new lawsuits were filed yesterday, experts signal challenges are imminent once the proposal is finalized. The proposal must undergo a public comment period until September 21st, which is 53 days from today, and a public hearing will be held in August.
It sounds like this is just the beginning of a long legal battle. Finally, Chloe, what does this mean for consumers and the auto industry? Are we on the road to more uncertainty?
For consumers, Grace, the rollback is expected to increase emissions and long-term fuel costs for drivers. According to NPR, the auto industry's response is nuanced. While they, quote, appreciate addressing the imbalance of current regulations and market conditions, they ultimately desire a single, stable standard to guide long-term planning. Ford Motor Company, for example, stated that current standards do not align with the market, and America needs a single, stable standard to foster business planning, as reported by thedrive.com.
Chloe, thank you for breaking down what is sure to be a very contentious issue. We appreciate your insights into the significant EPA announcement. Here are some other headlines. Well, it looks like the railroad industry is on the right track for a major shakeup. Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern have announced a landmark $85 billion merger. If approved, the deal would create the first single-line transcontinental railroad in U.S. history, linking the coast with over 50,000 miles of track. The companies say a seamless network will make shipping everything from steel to tomato paste more efficient, projecting over $1 billion in cost savings. However, the plan is facing some tough signals ahead, as it requires approval from the Surface Transportation Board, which has been wary of consolidation. The nation's largest rail union has also voiced concerns over safety and jobs, though leadership insists every union employee who wants a position will have one. Meanwhile, in a narrow 50-49 vote, the Senate has confirmed former Trump lawyer Emil Bove to a lifetime appointment on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. The confirmation was mired in controversy, stemming from whistleblower allegations that Bove suggested government lawyers should be prepared to defy court orders. One whistleblower claimed Bove used profanity to suggest telling the courts to F you over a deportation plan. Further controversy surrounds Bove for his role in dropping a bribery case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams and allegedly purging the Justice Department of officials seen as disloyal to the former president. Bove denied all allegations during his hearing, stating, quote, "I am not anybody's henchman." The Senate has also given a shot in the arm to the CDC, confirming Susan Menares as its new director in a 51-47 vote. In a notable break from tradition, Menares is not a medical doctor, but a scientist with a PhD in microbiology and immunology. During her confirmation hearing, she faced questions about her potential relationship with Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a known vaccine skeptic. Menares stressed she is an independent thinker who will base her decisions on science and evidence, and affirmed that vaccines, quote, absolutely save lives. And talk about an arresting development in Maine. A bizarre dispute has erupted between local police and federal agents. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, arrested a reserve police officer in Old Orchard Beach, claiming the Jamaican national had overstayed his visa and unlawfully tried to buy a firearm. But the town's police chief is firing back, insisting the Department of Homeland Security's own E-Verify system cleared the officer to work in the U.S. until 2030. The chief has called for a federal investigation into what she calls an, quote, apparent error on the part of the federal government. Finally, a major legal battle is brewing as California Attorney General Rob Bonta leads more than 20 states in a lawsuit against the Trump administration. The suit targets a new law that effectively strips federal funding from Planned Parenthood by barring Medicaid funds from reproductive health clinics that are part of large national networks. Bonta calls the provision unconstitutional punishment for the organization's advocacy. If upheld, the law could force the closure of about 200 clinics nationwide, including 109 in California that serve around 700,000 patients a year. For now, a federal judge has issued a preliminary order blocking the funding cut. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.